Okie dokie. So my name is Wolfgang. I'm a freelancer here in Berlin and actually currently working here with Spark. Coincidence. Yeah, and my topic is clean up view controller hierarchies with state/style. Yeah, and I promised to do it lightweight. You all had a long day. It's quite a humid and hot, so easy stuff. So it's actually kind of a pattern that I drag around for some years now, and good results with it. And actually, in our current app that we started early this year here at Spark from scratch, we are using it quite a lot with great results. It's helping us a lot. So I have no agenda. I just want to jump right into it. So let's first construct a very simple screen, and that's not where we will end. So we start low and then iterate and improve from there, but we need to have a baseline. So let's just have one view controller, and that view controller has a loading indicator. Great. That view controller also has an arrow image, an arrow text, something to indicate, hey, no content, sorry, and a table view with whatever, just something. And all these in one view controller, in one storyboard. Yeah, you see where this is going to. We need data right in our view controller. We will work on that as well. And yeah, we need some way to organize things. So we have an update UI method, and we start with, hey, we have an error, then we want to show this, that does not just trigger the visibilities. Yeah, I know, crap, but bear with me. Otherwise, no error and no content, we probably are still loading stuff. Okay. We have content, but that's empty, so empty. Oh, we have content, then we show the table view and let it reload our data. I won't talk about how we get data. You've all implemented web services. That's just, you know it. They're not part of that talk. That's just it. Concentrate on UI here. So that's our baseline, and we will iterate from that onward. That first view controller is iteration A, and let's see how many we got. Just so for the visual guys of you, it looks like this. I have a dummy button currently loading. Oh, error state, web service returned whatever. We have no content, we got nothing, at least successful, and we have content. Wow. So, and maybe you have pulled refresh scenarios and can cycle through all of that again. Yeah, that's just it. And we stay here. Yeah, so as I said, not ideal. And I hope whenever someone of you will find that in a code review, you hit America's Got Talent style, the buzzer, and I'm out. That's at least it should be like that. I guess we can all agree that that approach is early junior green behind our ears level. Okay, let's improve a bit. So first step is we pack all of our components in our view controller into a wrapping view. So we have one view with subchilds for the table and the toolbar, one for the arrow components, one for the empty components, and one for the one loading indicator. I mean, this is just simple example. You probably have bloated UIs, funny things for all these cases. Keep it simple. So again, just outlets for these four wrapping things. Of course, the table view, because we need to reload. Still the data, and our update UI function could look like this. In the beginning, we just set everything hidden. And then again, the same logic as before, we just activate one of the views that's wrapping stuff. Another way could have been, just to summarize it, we could have put all our elements for each category into an array, an outlet array, and just cycle over that. Easy, but yeah, possible, but I don't want to go in that direction. So just for completeness. Still not great, right? No. So let's improve a bit more. We are already at iteration C. Great. Oh, my storyboard is empty. Great. We can go home. And actually, it's empty. Instead, what we do is finally, let's create a view model, because finally put our data there for future things to come. And our iteration C view controller has the view model. also where it gets that from, how it's injected, not part of this topic. You all have your tools and your approaches, apply those, doesn't matter for that context, but we still have that update UI method. Okay, children, first thing, children for each, just get rid of them. Okay, we will place subview controllers onto that one. And when updating the UI, we just get rid of what we have currently. Second, okay, let's create subview controllers. Is my mouse cursor? It's there. Okay, so we just prepare our property, and depending on our well-known logic, is it an error? Is it empty content? Do we have content? Is it still loading? We just create a helper view controller, and at the end we just present that. We put that into our UI, and that's it. So that's already better in many ways. We have a great amount of separation. We have a separate arrow view controller that in reality you can instantiate with your arrow, with whatever you need to display it properly, to have the error message there. Hey, no internet, server failed, timeout, whatever you want to communicate, loading, empty content. It's just bare and basic here, but that's enough for this case. Yeah, it's better, but yeah, it's still not good. By the way, of course, in case your view model is changing its content, there are also techniques to let your view controller know about it, to update. It's also not part here. You can use combine, Rx Swift, a closure, delegation, whatever you like. That update method is being called whenever your view model changes its state, period. However you do that. So to improve further, let's have a look at UIKit and state. Oh, state, there's finally the magic word. UI button, when we configure it, there's already well-known API. You should all have seen that in the past at some point. Button set title, whatever for, normal, selected, highlight, disabled, focused, and there's more API for color, for image. So we are somehow coding, do something for a specific state. That's good. We will work with that. So our next improvement, iteration D, already crazy. We have a view model, and instead of having a separate error and a separate content property, we have an enum, because in Swift everything is enum based, and enum make just everything better. I would put enums on my breakfast because it would make my breakfast better. So we have a state enum, loading, empty, error, containing the actual error, and content containing the content that we like, and a property representing exactly that. It could be, again, it could be published or somehow emit its changes, up to you. And our view model also has, just have a look at it once. Let's say you initialize your view model, you want to load something, you start by setting your state to loading, you fire your web service, wherever it is, fetch content, and depending on the results, you set up your state to whatever is fitting. So, and how does our iteration D view controller look like? Again, we're still having the update UI method. We still have beginning and end, remove all children, add whatever view controller we want to. And the center part has changed. Of course, we have an enum, there's the switch over these states. And we have separation, so all our view controllers are clearly tucked away. We have one for every case, separation of concerns, yay. And in our view model or in our view controller, we have no more optionals, because that's great. And having no optional and not to deal with optionals is always a good thing. And enums help us in a good way. They encode, you have nothing with an actual value. So loading and empty is not nothing, it actually is something. And that's great. No optionals. I always like that. But we can still go further. But first, let's quickly have a look at SwiftUI. Does that work in SwiftUI as well? Yeah, sure. And it's actually even easier in SwiftUI. Let's say we have our view model. It follows the observable object protocol. We have the same enum. Oops. We have a published property. We have our SwiftUI view, and in the body, we again have just the switch. We switch over it and we load subviews. That's it. So even it's easy. It's even easier. It's less code. We don't need to deal with, hey, add child view, add child view controller, remove it. SwiftUI does it just better. Okay, yeah. SwiftUI, there's a reason for it, right? By the way, who is heavily invested in SwiftUI already? Well, yeah. So mixed. Yeah. Our current app is also best of both worlds, not purely A or B, just whatever serves the purpose. So, okay, let's, yeah, can we actually somehow have the same in a view controller, in a UI view controller, not dealing with adding, removing, and just define, present that in that switch, in that switch case? Yeah, somehow we can. So first, sorry. But first, why is that approach great? So let's have a look at a plan before we go to the next step. We plan an app, so we have a root, and all little boxes that are dashed will be such a state deciding view controller. So all dash boxes are exactly that. So we have the root view controller, and it's such a thing. One of its cases is splash. Another case is login, which again itself is such a state deciding, state switching view controller again. And that switches over, hey, okay, an edit mode, a loading mode, logging in mode, and an error screen. In the successful case, we are rerouted to somewhere else, obviously. And that somewhere else is a main tab view controller that just presents our main UI. And that has a navigation controller that again wraps, again, such a state view controller with loading, content, error, and nothing. Yeah, my dates. There we are at Spark, so that's my dates view. And the tab view controller has another button, again, just enough controller to wrap things. And there is search. And search again has cases. Edit, I'll type in what you're looking for. Loading, hey, there's content. Oh no, there's an error. I'm sorry, no dates found for you. And from all these, from my dates, from the list or from a profile, we can open an actual user profile. Loading, hey, there's content, and sorry, something just went wrong. Simple layout of an app, something that you have seen before, I guess, when planning out app hierarchies, UI hierarchies. And with these, with traditional, or let's say with more easy approaches, like in the iteration A, that would be like crazy, because your view controller would have to load and present all these states. And the advantage here is the only things that you have to actually implement are once, hey, we are loading something, please wait, error, hopefully it's a generic error screen that just presents everything, and sorry, no content, whatever. And of course, the switchers and the actual content screens. But all the rest, all the grayed out view controllers, you write them once and reuse them forever, and you're done. So you spare a lot of things, and you can actually focus on, okay, I create that state view controller that just switches over an enum that needs to get the data from somewhere. And that's its only purpose. That's its responsibility. And everything else is up to the sub view controllers. They do it. You know? So your content view controller doesn't have to deal with data, maybe data, error, whatever, testing. No, there is data. You initialize it with its content, and it knows something is there. I can just happily live with it and don't need to care about everything else. So let's improve the final step. That's what we had before. And I promised to go more into the direction of SwiftUI, like even reducing and making it even more simple. So our iteration D view controller that children, remove all of them, prepare a variable, and at the end remove them. That's kind of repetitive. And we have that whole big UI and this construct 20 times. SonarCube will just yell at us, duplicated code, get rid of that. Okay, we can try. So in our iteration E view controller, our update UI method removes all the children, asks a helper method, controller for state, hey, get me a view controller, and then sets that. So now our helper method is just the actual logic. So we have separated repetitive stuff from the method that we need to re-implement every time. And the final step, iteration F, surprise, is we move the stuff that repeats to a state view controller that is generic. We just tell it, hey, you operate on that enum type, our state enum. And actually that's it. So whenever our view model changes on a view model update, however that is being called, again, up to you. We call set needs state update. And there is this magic function, exactly this one. Yeah, there's this magic function that takes care of removing, adding view controllers and just calls controller for state. And I actually forgot to change that here. It should be override, not private. So sorry for that. So override func controller for state, that should be overwritten and it gives you whatever you need. And that's it. So of course, there is a package for that, as always. Here, GitHub link, you can just have a look at it, and it's doing exactly that and even a bit more. So it supports SPM or Carthage, and in case you're not happy with either of them, it's just 2 files. So in the worst case, you can just take them, drop them into your project, and it's fine. Yeah, I mean, 2 files, yeah, won't harm. So you inherit from state view controller. You tell it, hey, that's the enum that you should work on. That's your operation, and it organizes dynamic child view controllers via that state enum for you. So you have override function. Here it is. Load appearance state, and that just provides the initial state that it should be presented on start. So let's just say loading. Sometimes maybe you'd say, okay, let's start with initial, but loading is typically just fine. And it has that function override func children for state, and then you just answer the switch over the state enum that we just saw a couple of times again. The funny thing is here, you can actually return an array of view controllers, and that package, that system will stack them on top of each other. So for example, we already have your content presented, your table view, your collection view, whatever. You perform pull to refresh, and you still have your content. You place the loading indicator, the loading view controller on top of it, make it so that you cannot tap through, and you still see the content underneath, and it stacks up nicely. And it even has simple animation support. You just have your child view controller, each of them, or just selective one of them, conform to that protocol, and then you will see when implementing it here, there are methods that ask you, hey, initially shrinked or zoomed or moved or scaled. You can tweak its appearance a little bit. It's not something super fancy like Hero or IB Animatable, or there are other libraries that do a lot of fancy, crazy stuff, or SwiftUI. But it's a start. It already looks nicer than not doing anything. Here's just a video using that library. Same video as before, but this time in the cool way. And you see loading, click, and you see the transition effect. I just applied it for demo purposes. And well, for a simple case, that's already nice. Well, why not? And there it is. So, and here's the case. We have content. It's just being displayed. And then you press the reload button, pull to refresh, and you have that loading animation on top. However often you like, and maybe you end up in an error state or in an whatever empty state. Again, it's managed. You just have to implement your view model in the right way, that it creates the correct state, and your view controller will manage your whole UI. So advantages, dry, don't repeat yourself. Yeah, as I said, you can start focusing on the actual content view controller, on that view model, and on the view model that loads or prepares the data to get it into your app. Because nowadays, yeah, what app is not driven by remote data? Basically everyone loads data from somewhere. The cloud is the place to be. And you don't repeat what, yeah, you just need loading and error, but it's there, just reuse it. Single responsibility principle, yeah, sure. Your view model of the state view controller is just responsible for loading and determining the end, what state is the outcome of doing whatever interaction, and that's it. And your content view controller is just responsible for the content, and you don't mix and match, and it's not crossing boundaries. It's great to help you sort that out. SOC as well, you have one view, you could have, don't have to, one view controller for error case. It gets the error, it presents it, and you just use it everywhere. Same for error or no content. And that also, by the way, creates a consistent user experience. And yeah, SwiftUI and UIKit, you can mix and match them. So in case some parts of your UI are SwiftUI, but your loading error or no content screen is UIKit, yeah, you can combine them, no problem. Yeah, and because every view controller or the state view controllers and their children follow the same pattern by the generic state view controller, it's easy to move to the next view controller. You don't need a lot of repetitive stuff. It's super smooth. Yeah, and my personal favorite, you don't need a lot of optionals because you just switch over states and yay, that's it. Yeah, okay, given instead of an optional content, whatever property and an optional error property, you could use Swift result. Yeah, true. I admit that. Actually, that's it. Quite simple, but when being followed, quite powerful and sorting things out in the view hierarchy style. You can do the same thing for views. I mean, that's just the same thing in green instead in view controller. And Swift makes it easy as well. Yeah, that's it. Thanks.